another specimen of female pelvis showing the peritoneum reflected from the upper surface of the bladder to the front of the uterus, forming the uterovesical pouch. And this is the recto-uterine pouch behind the uterus, between it and the rectum. Notice also that the recto-uterine pouch is directly related to the posterior fornix of the vagina. This is the vagina open, and this is its posterior wall, and this is the posterior fornix. It is possible to drain pus accumulating in the recto-uterine pouch through the posterior fornix of the vagina. The peritoneum is stretched laterally on each side of the uterus to form the broad ligament. This is the left broad ligament, which extends transversely from the side of the uterus to the side of the pelvis. It is formed of two layers, a lower layer and an upper layer. Both are continuous together at the free border of the ligament. It will be described in detail soon. This is the left ovary. It lies in the lesser pelvis, just below the brim of the pelvis, in a fossa called the ovarian fossa. This is the ovarian fossa, which is bounded by the obliterated umbilical artery and the external iliac vessels from below and in front, and by the ureter and the internal iliac vessels from behind and above. The obturator nerve passes from behind forwards lateral to the ovary. The ovary is small in size, measuring 3 centimeters in length and 2 centimeters in width, and is attached to the upper layer of the broad ligament by a fold called the mesovarium. Through which the ovarian vessels and lymphatics pass to the ovary. The ovary is also attached to the side wall of the pelvis by a fold of peritoneum called the suspensory ligament, or infundibulum pelvic ligament of the ovary. The ovary is also attached to the lateral angle of the uterus by the ovarian ligament, which is derived from the gubernaculum of the fetus. Thus, the three ligaments are attached to the ovary are the mesovarium, which is a part of the broad ligament, the suspensory ligament of the ovary, connecting it to the side wall of the pelvis, and the ovarian ligament, which connects the ovary to the side of the uterus. The ovary is covered by peritoneum except at the mesothelium, and in ovulation, the ovum penetrates the cortex of the ovary as well as becoming the peritoneum to enter the uterine tube. Note that although the ovary is a pelvic organ, its lymphatic drainage goes to the aortic lymph nodes and not to the pelvic nodes. Its artery comes directly from the aorta at the level of the second lumbar vertebra, and its vein drains into the inferior vena cava on the right side and into the left renal vein on the left side. This is the uterine tube. It runs laterally from the side of the uterus within the free border of the broad ligament. Its part just lateral to its entrance into the uterus is called the isthmus and is narrow and cord-like. It forms the medial part of the tube. The lateral part of the tube is wider and tortuous and is called the ampulla. It ends laterally by a funnel-shaped expansion called the infundibulum, in the bottom of which lies the abdominal opening of the tube. This opening is surrounded by several processes called the fimbriae. These are the fimbriae. This is another specimen showing the opening of the uterine tube into the uterine cavity. This is the isthmus. And this is the wide ampullary part, which ends by the fimbriae. These are the fimbriae, which surround the abdominal opening of the uterine tube. This is the abdominal opening. This is the uterus. It lies between the rectum posteriorly and the urinary bladder anteriorly. It consists of a fundus, a body, and a cervix. This is the fundus. It is the upper part of the uterus, above the level of the entrance of the uterine tubes. There are two ligaments attached to the fundus on each side, exactly at the entrance of the uterine tube. These are the ovarian ligament behind the entrance of the uterine tube and the round ligament of the uterus in front of the entrance of the tube. The ovarian ligament passes close to the superior wall of the broad ligament, while the round ligament of the uterus passes close to its inferior wall. The round ligament is derived from the gluteus of the fetus, the same as the ovarian ligament. Note that the gluteus in the female fetus gets attached to the side of the uterus at the entrance of the uterine tube and consequently become divided into the ovarian ligament and the round ligament of the uterus. This is the body of the uterus. It extends from the level of the entrance of the uterine tubes to the cervix. It has an anterior or helical surface, which is related to the urinary bladder, and a posterior or intestinal surface, which is related to the sigmoid colon and coils of ileum. Its lateral margin gives attachment to the broad ligament and is directly related to the uterine artery, where it is tortuous in this part of its course. This is another specimen showing the uterus opened longitudinally. This is the fundus above the level of the entrance of the uterine tubes. This is the body of the uterus. And this is the cervix opening into the vagina through the external os and opening into the uterine cavity through the internal os. The cervical canal lies between the internal os and the external os. The part of the cervix projecting into the vagina is the vaginal part, while its part above the vagina is called the supravaginal part. The vaginal part is surrounded by the vaginal fornices on all sides. The anterior fornix anteriorly, the posterior fornix, which is the deepest, posteriorly, and a lateral fornix on each side. Note that the junctional zone between the body of the uterus and its cervix is called the isthmus. And this isthmus enlarges during the pregnancy to form what is called the lower uterine segment. The body of the uterus measures 3 inches in length and 2 inches in width, while its cervix is 1 inch long and 1 inch thick. Note that the uterus is normally antiflexed and antiverted. By antiflexed is meant that the body of the uterus is flexed anteriorly on the cervix. And by antiverted is meant that the body and the cervix together are bent anteriorly on the vagina. If they are bent posteriorly, the uterus is called retroverted. The